Hello everybody and welcome back to another video and doing a review on Avengers Endgame, obviously. However, this video is going to be coming out much later than I think pretty much any other reviewer is going to be doing it because I'm slow with editing. I'm going to try and keep this beginning bit spoiler free and then I'll move on to spoiler stuff. So basically, non-spoiler version. Its story is, it's not really anything really new. I would say that really, I don't feel like there were huge stakes or anything at the end because obviously they're just trying to reverse what happened, not defeat a villain. That's not really their focus, it's just reversing what the villain did in the previous film, which being Thanos. So there's nothing really super new about it. It's not, covering anything mind-blowing. It's just the same kind of thing we've seen before. But I think this film more focuses in on its characters. There's a lot more emotional moments. It does add something now which might make threats further on a little bit more iffy, if that makes sense. So they would have to do some stuff to make what they did possible to not work anymore. Because it just adds too much, I don't know, but like, it just removes the kind of stakes. I'm not going to explain what it is. Overall, really good film. My one problem that isn't a spoiler thing, because I have a few problems with it because every film has flaws. The only one that doesn't have a spoiler in it is that you require some background knowledge. Like, maybe not perfectly good background knowledge, but basically you need to have seen the majority of the previous films. The way that this film goes about means that you kind of need to know the previous films to get some of the locations, to get some of the jokes. Otherwise, you're going to kind of be there, people are going to laugh, and you're like, I don't get the joke, because you may not have seen that film. This does mean that really you can't, if you've never seen Marvel, or if you just saw Infinity War and was like, that was a good film, I'll go see this one. Don't really, feel free to, but just go in knowing that you're not going to walk out with the same experience as someone who has seen all of the films. Probably also someone, and for those people who have grown up on these films, I sort of have, but I got more into them a little bit later on when they were new. So I've experienced a bit of this build-up, but not all of it. So to those people who are just really lucky to have been fans of this series all the way up to this point, count yourself lucky, because, yeah, I'm sure you had a much better experience than I did. Now I'm going to go into the spoilers. So, spoiler warning on screen somewhere, probably down here. So, basically, now going to more spoilery stuff, what kind of happens is it starts off a bit not too long after the main bit. I think it's meant to be about 22 days after the end of Infinity War. Starks in space and basically he's recording one of his little messages on the helmet. Captain Marvel shows up, who, from what I know, has to wear a helmet in space. She doesn't wear it in this entire film. Then Tony Stark is brought back to Earth, and, he's basically like, we fail, no, and he basically just gives up on everyone, and he's just like, nope, I'm out of here. And then it casts to, they do it in a really weird way where it was 5 years later. Thanks for the suspense. 5 years, that's actually quite a long time. And by the end of the film, they haven't gone back in time. Which brings up a question that I have. 5 years is a lot of time in the sense of technology. I mean, think about the technology used when this series, not this series, but, the Marvel series began, and compare it to now. Yes, it is obviously its own world, just think about Tony Stark's suits, but technology will advance 5 years, and from a grid I saw on a video once talking about AIs, technology basically will just goes like this. Every year we double basically the amount of power in a computer. So Marvel technology, yeah, can keep advancing, but modern day stuff like the cars they use or the phones they use, all of a sudden you're going to have to think, okay, what's technology going to look like in 5 years? Which is insanely hard to predict. So yeah, so there's a complication there. But the 5-year change meant that a few of the characters changed their appearance. Black Widow dyed her hair red, mostly. Captain Marvel changed her hair to be a bit more comic accurate. She definitely got a new costume, I'm just trying to remember, but I think the colours were reversed. So Scott Lang shows up. Like basically a rat managed to activate the tech in the van, which has basically fired him back out. Gets out and he goes back to the Avengers, and they're like, oh, he didn't disappear. Also now his daughter is a teenager, so that's cool. It's probably a shock for both of them. I was like, is that his wife? Or no, she looks too young. No, she's his daughter. But yeah, he then goes to like find the Avengers at like their base, and basically says, I think we can make a time machine, because what happens in the quantum realm whilst he was trapped in there, 5 years outside it was 5 hours inside it. For him, he had been in that 5 hours, which must have been so boring. Anyway, wait, wouldn't that... Oh, great. I've just realised that would mean that Hank Pym's wife was trapped in there for... I don't remember how long. But she would have only aged in hours compared to how many years? Meaning she would have probably only been in there for a few days at most. I know they say it's unpredictable, which could mean that there is still a possibility that she could have aged however many years she was in there. Which I feel like they were superheroes when they were like in their 30s or 20s or 30s. No, they had a daughter, so probably in their 30s. And she shows up and she looks somewhere in her 50s, coming up to her 60s. Okay, well, it's unpredictable. But basically, Scott Lang comes up with this idea that they basically pull off a time travel heist, steal all the Infinity Stones, and make their own Infinity Gauntlet to reverse the snap by snapping, but reverse it, bring back everyone, and then return the stones to where they originally were. Which actually, in a way, makes sense. As long as you return them in pretty much the same time that you took them, with maybe only a few minutes difference, yeah, you probably wouldn't screw up the timeline a whole lot. I think they might make it possible for Loki to return, or maybe they did a thing in between it, because there was a bit when he escaped using the Space Stone. I've now suddenly forgotten what it's called. The cube. But I'm guessing they get him back because when they travel to when a different group is in the future, so Thor's group, he's still in prison, which is taking place in the 3rd Thor film. But yeah, but they like go back to like 2012 with the Avengers, when they have that like really iconic shot, and then they kind of cut away to the other characters showing up. And yeah, that was really cool seeing like all these little references and stuff like that. I like the way that Doctor Strange in the middle of an alien invasion was performing surgery on someone. This is what I mean by the fact that this thing, because the time travel thing works. In the sense that it works for this film, they're able to time travel, and they have this ability. Yes, at the end of the film, the time machine is broken, but there's nothing to stop them rebuilding it. You kind of see the problem there? Any event that causes mass destruction, they could... I know they were being a lot more careful than I think in most time travel films, but they still were a bit lazy with it, and I'll get onto that when I come into the cons later on, but there was a few bits where I was like, okay, that would seriously alter the timeline. As I said, you need to kind of know the previous films. As I said, they kind of like time travel back to previous films. And they have a lot of references to them and stuff like that. And it's quite nice to see those little things being remembered. Okay, well basically they use the time travel, they all go to different places, kill off loads of... I've just realised I forgot a bit, but I suppose it's not super important because it's kind of reversed later on. But, you know, all of like the characters go to different places, and then like Nebula, the two versions of Nebula, the past and the future, on it varies on how you're looking at it in time travel. Where they were, it was the future and present, but in their view it was the present and the past. No, and the future. Anyway, it's confusing. Basically, the two nebulas shared the same system, meaning they were actually sharing the same memories at the same time. This meant Thanos was able to intercept them. But the thing is, if Nebula was seeing those memories, Nebula was also seeing all of her character's motives. The reason she became good, stuff like that. So it kind of feels weird. If suddenly they share the same memories, you would kind of think they would go on the same arc. Even if it's not natural, all of a sudden their memories are merged, they are basically still the same person, but literally the same memories as well. So, shouldn't she have kind of gone through like a very quick arc where she's like, oh no, I don't want to work for Thanos anymore, kind of arc. Gamora is kind of brought back, she's brought back to life as a past version of herself, which means she doesn't die anymore? Which means that her arc has been entirely reversed because she hasn't met Peter Quill until the final fight, which is her first interaction with him. So her arc has been lost. Time travel messes up a lot of stuff, and it's kind of hard. It's almost guaranteed that you're going to have a lot of problems when you implement time travel. The annoying thing is, as I said, it removed Gamora's death, which I kind of thought was going to be permanent. But they've reversed it, meaning that basically their arc has like gone back over to the beginning, which is a bit annoying. Unless they do something to push the arc back to where it was, and then finish it again, or I suppose technically the arc never finished, but you know. Then, basically yeah, like the Nebula switch places, the bad one shows up and tries to sabotage all their stuff, Thanos shows up and destroys the Avenger base, but not after the Hulk, or I think my brother called him Bulk, because Bruce Banner in Hulk's body, so he's not always he's in Hulk mode, but he's still got Bruce Banner's mind. He's kind of cool, but yeah, when they made the new Infinity Gauntlet, like, he snaps his fingers, and everyone does come back. We're showing this through Hawkeye getting a phone call from his wife, and yeah, and then Thanos shows up and a big fight happens, and that was amazing. I remember I actually heard people... This is the first time I heard a reaction other than laughter coming from a film, which was people gasping when like they saw the hammer fly over, it hits Thanos when Hulk's like... Not Hulk. Thor is having like his Stormbreaker putty, and then what's the hammer called? Mjolnir. The J is silent. Mjolnir. Flies over, and Captain America is holding it. I heard people just go, oh, like in the back. I was like, yeah, I know, it's awesome. Captain America is worthy. But yeah, and that was cool. And they even have like a little bit of, there was one scene, it didn't slow down like it did, but there was like a reference visually to when Avengers Assemble, when Thor and Captain America are like fighting off some of the aliens, and you know, it's like, and there's like a tribute to that with the same kind of camera movement. But yeah, they just continue to fight, and that was awesome. The final fight is amazing in this film. It's quite long, but it is amazing. After the final fight, there's a few bits I'll get into a little bit later when I talk about the pros and cons and all that. But usually what they say is you want to end your film as soon after the climax as possible. This makes sense. You want your arc you want the story to go up, to slowly increase to the top, to the climax being, you know, the most intense point, and then it kind of drops, and you kind of want to end the film at that point when it drops, so that the audience don't get bored. There's now no tension anymore. This film continues on for a little bit longer after that to kind of finish some of this have some of the characters leave or say goodbye to some of the characters who won't be returning, or just kind of show what, like, how the characters are going off after this. Which makes sense, and it's nice, and it doesn't really get dragged down, which is very good. I'm pleased they were able to pull that off, because a lot of films don't. Okay, I'm gonna go into the pros. Like, the main characters that this focuses on all get a pretty equal amount of screen time. Like, they're all pretty much on screen for the same amount of time. This is why the film is so long, because they split it into so many groups. But they all get pretty much the same amount of runtime. It's quite nice seeing, like, how they changed across, like, the 5 years. It says some of the characters changed their hair, they're, like, some of them are a bit more annoyed. Thor has put on a load of weight, and it is hilarious. He's also, like, he's got his hair going, like, down here, he's got a big beard. He doesn't even get muscular at the end. I think they did that so that he couldn't just one-punch Thanos. And I would say that Thor probably would have been strong enough to fight Thanos hand to hand, but they made him overweight so that he couldn't do that, in a way. Which made sense. They needed to numb him a little bit so there was a bit more tension. So I can accept that. And it's also funny seeing him, like, really overweight and kind of, you know, drinking a lot and stuff like that. It's kind of fun to see him. There's also other stuff like, you know, Tony Stark has a kid. I'm wondering if that kid is meant to grow up to be Ironheart from the comics, but they are different people. So I don't know. But they might make her Ironheart. Or I think Pepper Potts is going to take over from him, because she has an Iron Man suit now. Or Iron Woman suit. This film's also really emotional when it wants you to be emotional. As I said, like, the fight is awesome and you're like, yes! You know, you feel happiness when the characters, like, when, like, people come back and you're like, oh yay, they're back! But also the deaths are handled so well. Black Widow and Tony Stark. I don't know why they're twins. I believe that they're only two that die in this film. I'm pretty sure. Unless you count Nebula's past self, which I'll get to that later. But yeah, I think those are the only two that die. Black Widow dies to get the Soul Stone, and Tony Stark dies after wiping away Thanos and all of his army. Yeah, and this film, like, really hits hard, especially with the Tony Stark death. There's almost, like, this mirrored bit with the end of Iron Man. I don't know, I just had the feeling of when, like, the end of Iron Man 1, there's, like, a bit when he's lying there, and I've put the camera more zoomed in now, so I have to, but he's got, like, the arc reactor, and it's kind of flashing a little bit, so that it's still on and gives him power, but even though it's no longer keeping him alive, in this bit, when he dies, the arc reactor just turns off. And it's like, oh, he died. Black Widow's death, like, the way they handled it was like, Hawkeye and Black Widow basically were like, oh, we know who needs to die. And they basically think they both want to sacrifice themselves, but neither of them let them. Like, Hawkeye eventually leaps off the side. It was like, okay, he's gonna die, and then Black Widow jumps after him like, what now? And then she, like, grapples to, like, the side and attaches the grapple to Hawkeye, so she's not connected to the grapple anymore, and just pushes off and falls to her death, and it was sad. Also, just the way the characters were used throughout this film, they were all used to play kind of in their strong suit, if that makes sense. Scott Lang really did kind of plan everything. He came up with the heist idea, which was something that was a bit weird. What I liked about, like, Ant-Man 1 was it was a heist film. Ant-Man 2 didn't really feature that. Ant-Man, at least in the MCU, is a heist person. His films should really be heist films, with, like, all that planning and stuff like that, except the difference is it's a supervillain. So him kind of planning a time travel heist just kind of made it work with him. And I think, like, the characters, like, they were all really well used, especially, like, towards the end, with that final fight, where just, because I remember this, like, when, like, the portal started to appear, I was like, oh, I just remembered all the good guys have come back to life. Remember, and like Doctor Strange and all the other magic people, like brought in like every group that has been shown in the MCU. So like Wakanda, the Magic People, the Guardians of the Galaxy, everyone. Steve Rogers there. Avengers assemble. But yeah, there's some brilliant like shots as well when this fight starts. Like there's a really cool one with just like Steve Rogers just standing there looking at like all the forces coming towards it. It looks like a poster. It is so cool. Or like a piece of concept art. It looks so good. The other shot was when they all come together to fight. Like they all come to clash. And like it zooms out from like the main Avengers zooming out, showing all the other characters, and that was awesome. I remember because something that kind of annoyed me was how none of like the entire cast didn't get together in Infinity War, so it was so cool seeing them all together. But yeah, I'm gonna go on to Tony Stark's funeral. It was really emotional. I had annoyingly been spoiled of this scene, but obviously speculation had been heading around the internet for ages. And yeah, when he died, I was like, oh, this is annoying because I know how. And then they have like this funeral scene, and they have like floating on the lake the his original arc reactor. I think it was his original one that Pepper like put in like a frame where it says proof that Tony Stark has a heart, and that was really nice. And then the camera kind of pans around like from like Pepper and it goes up to like Peter. And I can't remember what order this all goes in, but it moves across basically all of the heroes, all the way up. There was a couple, like there was one random guy where I even heard some other people behind me just go, who is that? I was kind of sitting there like, I don't know who that is actually. But then the camera kind of follows up and eventually like shows Captain Marvel standing right at the back, and then it kind of continues to pan back and we see Nick Fury, because he's back. That was such a nice scene because it kind of showed like that thing there was like, you know, Tony Stark has a heart. That's from like the first film. That was like the motivation that he had, and it led to all of this. And it's kind of poetic seeing it that Tony Stark, the one who started it, is the one who ended it, kind of thing, was really nice. But yeah, I think a lot of stuff with Iron Man was really good, especially in the final like act. Like there's the bit when he like charges towards Thanos, is about to like snap his fingers, and he like grabs him and he throws him away, and he's like, I am inevitable, snaps his fingers, and then like all the other times when they snap their fingers and it's got that really nice crisp click noise, like that snap or whatever, it just has like this sound of grinding metal, which is more likely what it should actually sound like. And I love it because I knew like just before he stabbed, he's like, you know, he's taken one of the Infinity Stones, turns the Infinity War around, and all of the stones are gone. Tony just managed to grab all of them and put them into his own like Iron Man fist, and he's just there, I am Iron Man. And then he just snaps his fingers and they were all wiped away. They even had like a very similar scene with the camera coming around, a bit like how Infinity War ended, with the camera coming around to show Thanos at peace with what he's done. This time it panned around to show him ashamed of failing. You kind of feel bad for him, as he just kind of hangs his head in shame and fades away. I also do believe that they were I haven't actually noted this down, but I am pleased that they didn't really overuse Captain Marvel. I had heard that Captain Marvel was overpowered. Seeing her in this film, she is overpowered. The fact she's just so powerful just kind of made it go, okay. And I did think she was going to originally defeat Thanos. And I remember there was one bit where like she got punched or something at one point, sent flying, and then she's like holding the gauntlet, and Thanos just headbutts her and nothing happens. I'm like, hang on, you hit, so his fists hurt you, but his head doesn't. And I was like, don't kill him now. This would be just really and like so, and he just grabs out like the Power Stone and punches over the other fist. Just sends it flying. That's resourcefulness. So yeah, I was pleased that she wasn't overused or entirely unstoppable to Thanos. My mum did say that, like, how did he defeat all of them when originally had all of the stones? And I was like, well, he beat Hulk. You know, he was pretty powerful to begin with, and even then, even without using his gauntlet, he was still pretty powerful. So I can see what she means by the fact he seems too powerful at the moment, but I think he's kind of already been shown to be quite powerful. I'm actually going to follow this on with one of my other cons, which is, I'm now moving into the cons list, which there was one shot that featured Captain Marvel, and after this really cool bit with Spider-Man, like, swinging around, and I'll talk about Spider-Man in a minute, but, like, where he's, like, trying to swing around to get there, and he gets kind of knocked down, and Sheila picks it up and he's like, how are you going to get there? And then basically all of, like, the main female superheroes? Is that Black Panther General, whatever she is, a superhero? I don't really think she is. But anyway, like, all of those characters, like, show up. I was like, yeah, you've kind of lost the subtlety of that. I know it's still show and not tell, but it's too obvious. And also, like, Captain Marvel had no trouble getting through all of that by herself. Thanks, phone. So yeah, but that shot felt a bit off. That, like, little bit. It's only, like, what, maybe, like, 10 seconds. But yeah, also, stuff like the reversing of character arcs. As I said, Gamora being brought back to life just means her character arc has now been completely erased. And also kind of cheats you out of that thing that she died in the first film. That was kind of that was emotional. It was like, oh, he actually did that. And now she's alive again. Like, she's like 8 years younger now. It just doesn't really feel right. They've just kind of reversed a lot of their chemistry now. I've already mentioned about the background knowledge thing. As I said, there are time travel complications. I know they destroyed the machine, and mostly seem to be able to probably do everything right. That it's like, yeah, okay, so, you know, technically they're putting everything back the way it was, in pretty much the same point in time they were removed, so technically nothing should change. But, as I say, Gamora has been brought back to life, and not only that, it's her past self. She hasn't lived through those 8 years, unless she is sent back in time to live through the events that she was meant to, but also, the version of Thanos that they actually fight is a younger version, because they kill the older version, like, a few minutes in, so the past version of himself is the one that's erased. Which means Infinity War never happened. Unless Tony Stark snapped them all back to their original time, but because it was the fading thing, I'm pretty sure they're all dead. But there is one bit. The two versions of Nebula. I've already said how Nebula is a bit weird, her past version of herself. The fact that she, even though she shares the same memories as the present day version, or I suppose future version actually, because it's 5 years in the future, the version of if they share the same memories, they'll be the same person, meaning they would have basically experienced the same arc. Yes, past Nebula would have experienced it a lot quicker in a way, but it would still be in her memory. She would still remember them and thus remember the arc. But she doesn't. And then when she attempts to kill Gamora, future version of Nebula shoots her past version of Nebula. And heavily implies, by the fact she doesn't move, to be dead. So how is future Nebula still alive? That is confusing. Just accept it. I was saying maybe there's a deleted scene that says that she didn't die and they just cut it. But due to pacing or whatever. So she didn't fully die. But either way, that then means that there's two Nebulas running around. So, but you can't kill the past one. If anything, it would make more sense to kill the future one. And then regret it. Or something. Anything's better than that because it means that a dead character is still alive. Which I suppose it isn't the first character to do that. The two sisters technically should both be dead. But yeah, there's also, as I said, Spider-Man, there's a couple of problems with him, but they're more like little nitpicks that don't really... One thing was when, as I said, that amazing shot with all the characters charging towards Thanos' army. Spider-Man's just whipping around up there, and as soon as I saw that I thought, what are his webs latching onto? They're in the middle of nowhere, The spaceship is way too high. The giant worm things that fly through the sky are probably still too far away, if not probably still too high. And his webs are way too close together to be connecting to something far ahead of him. So what is he webbing onto? The other thing, this is the only shot which I think has that problem. But also the thing when he's like getting attacked by the aliens and he just goes, activate instant kill. So he's then basically running around killing loads of these aliens. Doesn't that break his rule, like his no killing rule like Batman? I don't know what they are, but neither does he. So I don't know why he activated that. That kind of breaks the character a little bit there. But apart from that, it's cool seeing him back. And it was quite nice seeing him like get back to the school and reunite with Ned. Who I only just realised is Ned Leeds, the person who marries Betty Brant. Why have they been turned back into teenagers instead of like 20-year-olds? I don't know. It's weird. Also, Betty Brant looks like Gwen Stacy. The new Captain America. Right at the end of the film, not right at the end, but very close to the end, Captain America goes back in time to put all the Infinity Stones back, but doesn't return. Why? Because he basically married Agent Carter and lived a full life with her, which I think I had heard someone say that he might do that with the Time Stone, but it wasn't the Time Stone, it was a time machine. But when he gets there, not only does he look a bit too young to be someone from World War II, he's got like the shield and he just gives it to Falcon, not Bucky. I'm pretty sure Bucky takes on being Captain America. Also, Bucky is Steve Rogers' best friend, and Bucky has experience with the shield, even if it's only a little bit. Falcon knows Steve Rogers since he... Shut up. Since he was in the modern age. It just doesn't feel right. Bucky is like Steve Rogers' last connection to his past. It would have made sense for him to give it to Bucky, but he didn't. It's weird. It just doesn't feel right. I hope they change it later on, like he's Captain America for a little bit, and then just kind of goes, yeah, this should be yours, and gives it to Bucky, which would make more sense. So yeah, that's my review. Is it a good film? Yeah. Is it the best Marvel film? I think it's definitely emotional, and if you've seen all the previous films, it is a great conclusion for now. They're obviously going to come back later on. They should have a 5-year gap, and then that way everything is in sync again. Disney, do that. We can wait. We will wait. Shoot, no we can't, because loads of films are coming out very soon. Like Spider-Man. Go watch it, especially if you've seen the previous films. If you haven't, lock yourself in a room and watch all of the films, and then go watch that film. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to either risk getting spoilers, or you're not going to enjoy the full potential of this film. So, yeah. I'm not going to give it a rating or anything, because you're here to watch a review. Watch the review, don't just skip to the end. Thanks all for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye.